Okay, now seat time. All of these are in, they look fairly good. There's a little bit of a jumble going on here, but I'm not too concerned right now. What I've done is I've made a bracket for the top of it, like a pedestal for the top, and this will be what everything lashes onto. So the idea is to fix it to the springs so that it's, you know, parallel to the top and the front and the back. And this is all strapping, and they're flexible. They're not welded in the centers, so the seat will actually have flex no matter where you sit. This is quite rigid. I wanted that, and so are the sides. This is probably going to get rounded off, but at the moment, as I said, this is all flexible, so all the way along. And I've put 2 where every bum goes, so there may be 3 bums on it. I doubt it. Probably be only just me. But anyway, I've set it up so that 3 people could sit on it and it's not going to collapse. So this will support, like a sandwich, everything. And what I'll do now is I'll tie in all of the springs to this. And I'm not sure how I'm going to attach this to the bottom. I was thinking one wrap of wire, but then I thought, no, I'll do 2. I'll do a link. So 1 and then another one, so they'll be able to collapse on each other. So I'll probably do that in all 4 corners, and then probably a couple more times there. And that should pretty much tie it all in. And then I'll go from there. I'll probably start weaving that strapping in. And I'm limited right now. I'm waiting on the Hessian bags for the top of it, so they're coming tonight. So I'll keep continuing on with this, and I may even get started on the backrest there, but depending on how I go, it's quite slow work. Obviously, you're just sort of designing it as you go, if you can call it that, and trying to work with what you got. So these were just 2 bits of scrap steel. You probably remember them from some of my earlier videos that I used to just sort of square up stuff, but they were getting in the way, so I cut them up, and there they are. They're going to be there for a long time. Not much else to report, but it adds a lot of strength to it. If you can imagine, this gives it a flex, and instead of pushing down on 4 springs with my hand, then I'm actually pushing down on every spring across the whole body of the seat, and the base is not flexible at all. The base is over, I'm not going to use the word engineered, but it's over purposed, built stronger than it needs to be. And all the flex is going to be in the top section now. Everything's been transferred to this top plate. None of it will be onto individual springs, and that's the best way, I think, for what I've got here. These obviously aren't correct springs, but they're going to do the job just fine the way that I'm going here. So by the time this seat's done, you wouldn't even know where it had come from, what it had been made out of, and this is all just scrap metal. Every single piece here is just scraps. So I'm just working as I go and building what I can. Anyway, so it keeps me off the ground. I think that's a win. In, up. Okay, afternoon, Sunday. Been working on the seat still. So that's some of the padding out of the couch that I had. I'm not too happy with that, so that's probably not going to stay like that. But we are getting a big storm build up, and we get them big here. We've had some massive bushfires in Australia over the last week, few weeks. Don't want to get political, but you know, when you can't clear the land because you're not allowed to, this sort of stuff happens. We've always had bushfires here for tens and tens of thousands of years, but policy here in Australia over the last couple of decades has sort of stopped that. I was in the land clearing industry a long time ago, and that was the whole point of it. You cut the brush back and it doesn't build up. So anyway, we've had some massive bushfires. It's a bit of a reset. So on the seat back, I'm just trying to use up some of this stuff floating around, and I don't really want to go out and buy stuff. And what I've got an issue with is I need some spring for the backrest. So this is the backrest, and it'll pop out about this far to the padding, and then it shoots down towards this, closer to the bottom as far as I can gather. So the idea I had was just to spring these across, but then you've got the issue of having a hard back and there's no give, and I reckon you'd end up with a really sore lower back after a while. So I had to stop that, and I'm searching my brain, looking in my scrap buckets. I've got about 6 of them floating around, and I just can't seem to find any spring steel or anything suitable anyway. Nothing to temper. And I came up with this. I've got, if you remember back in one of my other videos, I was building the bumper supports. So these are right on mower blades, and this one was a mistake. I cut it and welded it on the wrong side. So this is spring steel essentially, and it's quite thick. It's probably 6 millimeters thick, and it's very strong, and it won't deform at all. So my thought is to utilize that and them to create a curved backrest that will have flex, strong enough to bear weight, but also strong enough to not deflect in certain areas, and give you points where you're getting, points that are pushing into your back. So the thought was, if you haven't already worked out, cut this into, not sure of the best way to do it so far, but I'd say probably patterns like a butterfly. So something like that, and then this section here would get welded along the top edge, and then this section of the butterfly would get welded along this edge. So it would sit like that, but then there'd be enough flex in this to come back and forward. Obviously I'd get it right so that even going up like that might be better. So bringing the steel like this, like that, and then putting this over it and welding to it, and then it would act like a spring or a damper, and then I'd be able to have 3 sections. I think that'd work out quite well. I'd have to play around with it, I'd say. I don't think I'd get it right first time. I think welding a piece on that wide, straight in there, and then expecting this to flex in and out is probably a little bit, I don't know the word for it, but I don't think that'll work first up. So I think definitely like a butterfly effect, where you've got a wider point to weld to, but then there's a section in the center where the flex would happen. So you'd get the flex back and forth, but it would also come back. And then this would obviously get padded quite well. Multiple layers of hessian to take away the feeling of that. And what I'd probably do is put a natural roll in these as well. So rather than being flat, I'd put a roll in it. If you imagine you're sitting and your back has an arch, I'd probably put a roll in it like that. And this would take up that, it wouldn't move. I just hit it with a torch, bend it. But I think I'll just go ahead with that. I've got 2 short ones. So 2 short ones and a piece of one, and then 2 long ones. So I'm just wondering whether I could probably just use the 2 short ones and then in the center weld the piece top and bottom and not have the spring. Not too sure, but definitely that's what I'll be doing. So yeah, I'll definitely go ahead with that. I was just looking at a photo of how these seats were originally, and as far as I can gather, they had that spring that ran down and it had the natural contour, and then it came up to the top. There was a framework that went along, but then it joggled at a 90-degree angle. So it came up and then it went that way. So all it was the spring went this way, but it also came back, it deflected back. So that was the shock absorber just here. So it came back, but also went down as well. So it had movement that way. And all I would be doing by doing that is replicating that, but having it at the base. So I can't see any problem with that so far. The only thing I could see would be maybe this frame would want to flex. So I may have to add some sort of support in this corner and down in that corner, and then I'd do the same over there as well, because this is where it's being held and this is where it's being held. So if I bring the structure from here out further, say that long, and it's being pushed that way already, and then something there, this is quite a strong area. So then this part here is being maintained by these two. If I didn't do anything, I think I'd have problems, but I think that'll work out just fine. Actually, that'll save my butt. That's a lot less work too. I won't have to make all those springs. That was a good 4 or 5 hours work, I'd say, doing that. So I've wired in this top as well. So you can see that there's a combination of ties and wires, and it's definitely strong enough. I did sit on it a few times, and the pieces of metal had a natural bend in them anyway from cutting them on the throatless shears. So yeah, it's going to come together quite well, I think. I can't grind, sorry, today. It's Sunday, so The corners will get nipped tomorrow, and then obviously deburred. I'll probably take a bit off the back as well, and then I'll get straight into this. I'll get home from work and there's a natural curve here where the blade actually has a rise. I'll probably just use that piece and that piece and go directly in the center. And because it's got the curve, that'll actually aid in the spring. So I'll put the curve facing back, so it'll come out slightly and then curve up, and then these will bounce back from that, and that'll be quite strong as long as the weld holds. That's the only issue you've got, I'd say, is the weld holding. But I can always add a bit of plate here and then weld that to this and the plate, or run a buttress across like that. That might be a better idea. But we are about to get probably hail. We get hail here, so it's probably not even 2 or 3 minutes away. You can hear the thunder clapping now. Well, I haven't seen any lightning yet, so it's a good old Queensland storm here building up. Anyway, I'll bring you back. Alright, 5 minutes later, massive hailstorm. So, yeah, we've had the hail and now we've got the rain. It's still coming down. Bits of hail everywhere. Probably there's some good sized ones amongst it. That's a good sized piece of hail right there. Yummo. So yeah, there you go. Queensland weather. Hopefully that puts out some of the fires. My poor little car. I raced out there with a blanket, and it's tough as tough as an old boot, that car, so I'm not too concerned about it. It's probably been through 150 hailstorms in its lifetime. I'll bring you back.